like last time, I will be introducing the theme of chapter 2 in a little more details for us, so that when you study it with Shrutitaji, you will have an idea of what the thought flow is. Now, we also talked about last time how Shoka Moha Mahodati, the vast ocean of Sansar, which is Raga, Shoka, Moha, is a universal human problem, not just a problem for Hindus. And this drowning, so to say, in the ocean of Sansar is because of our inherent tendency to get attached to people, to objects, to situations, and we want to repeat those again and again. And so attachment, raga, leads us to shoka if we don't gain or we lose the contact with the object or person. And that grief creates a milieu in our mind where there is conflict and inability to discriminate right from wrong. And our problem continues because we don't make the right choice. So all of these, we said again last time, are symptoms of apurnata, a sense of lacking something, limitedness. And that's what drives us to keep seeking new pastures in life. And the treatment for that, for Vedas and even for Lord Krishna in Gita, is Atma Jnanam, what he calls Jnanam or Sankhya Yoga. And he says this is what will cure you. And it is borne out by Upanishadic teaching, Tarati Shokam Atmavid. The knower of self crosses the ocean of Maya or Shoka. So we have to get Jnanam. And Sri Krishna and Vedas also say that for that you must have a pravrutti marga, or you must indulge in preparation of mind to qualify for Jnanam. And that preparation of mind is termed here in Gita as yoga, and Jnana Yogyata is what we are trying to get, that relative purity of mind, so that the Jnana is assimilated by us. It's just not at intellectual level. So we have to go through yoga, the karma yoga, and we said karma yoga means all spiritual practices, not just social service. And then through that, we develop chitta shuddhi, which will help us then to go to a guru and learn jnana. So let me try and give an overview of chapter 2 today. And as we said last time, Sri Krishna, who is Jagat Guru, attempted to address this conversion of Arjuna's from Sansari to Jnani, just what we are all seeking. And in chapter 2, Upakrama Sankshepa of entire Bhagavad Gita teaching, it is kind of an overview, and that's what I'll attempt to give you. There are 4 main topics in chapter 2. And if you look at them, the first one, verse 1 to 10, addresses the continuity from chapter 1. Remember, chapter 1 was called Arjun Vishada Yoga. So that continues, and there's a continuum, which is how all books are. And Arjuna's Shrandangati is highlighted. Shrandangati, surrender. For Atma Jnana, it is said that unless the person asks for it, nobody gives it, or a guru will not give it. They are told specifically that a person must ask. And asking is a form of surrender, a surrender where you say, okay, I don't have my own self-will at present where this knowledge is concerned. I don't have prejudices, wrong notions, which will come in the way of your teaching. That is the idea, that I will empty myself for you to fill it with wisdom. And that's why traditionally when someone takes sannyas, they shave off their head, or each hair representing desire in this world. So verses 1 to 10 is Arjun Shrandangati. Then verse 11 is where Krishna actually starts his bodh or teaching. And from 11 to 38 is Jnana Yoga that is highlighted. Sometimes it helps to go straight to the goal first, even if it is a very elevated goal for a novice, just so they have an idea of where they are heading to. I remember reading about Kalpana, who was an astronaut, who came from a small town in Punjab and was in NASA. And she was unfortunately in the Apollo mission where she lost her life. So she used to say that when she looked at the sky and thought of one day flying out there and discovering the stars and the planets and moon and etc., she always felt that she had to try a step at a time. She knew the goal, but it was too far while she was in her youth and younger days in India. But she achieved that goal step by step by step and became one of the astronauts who flew the mission. So I think that's what our great teacher, Sri Krishna, is thinking. And he goes on with Jnana Yoga first to tell Arjuna of what the goal is. Then verses 39 to 53 talks about how to gain that preparation of mind, Jnana Yogyata or Karma Yoga practices. And these are all in Sankhya, in brief, right? Because Sri Krishna will elaborate as Arjuna asks questions in the rest of the 17 chapters before concluding in chapter 18. Then the fourth topic is the topic of Sthita Prajna Lakshanas. The one who has achieved the goal, who is he? How does he talk? How does he behave? How does he live in this world? Questions we all have when we talk about lofty goals. And that's why reading biographies, autobiographies of masters inspire us. So these are the four categories under which I'll base some of my comments. And hopefully, as I said, that will help the thought flow through chapter 2. So verses 1 to 10, the first topic of Arjun Shrandangati. Now, Arjuna discovers this disease of samsara at a very odd place on the battleground, very inconvenient place too. But up to now, Shoka Moha never overpowered him like it did at that time when he viewed his dear relations, teacher, Dronacharya ji, Bhishma Pitaji. So that is when he forgot he had come as a soldier to fight a Dharma Yuddha, and he became Arjuna, who loved his grandfather and who loved his teacher. So this is what is raga, we said, which is the beginning of this problem of samsara. And with this attachment now, when he clouds his mind with that attachment, he feels extreme vishad, grief, sorrow, which overwhelms him. He says his body becomes tremulous, shaking, he can't even hold his Gandiva, and he sits down because his mind is swirling around. And this sorrow is of imaginary loss. He has not yet killed anybody, but the imaginary loss of grandfather and teacher is what brings on such drastic overwhelming of mind. And with that, he, of course, gets into moha, or he cannot discriminate very well between dharma and adharma. And this avivek leads him to justify why he's thinking the way he's thinking of leaving the ground. And he gives a big sermon to Lord Krishna in chapter 1, and talking about the sad consequences of war in any society and how it can destroy a nation, etc., even after winning the war. And we all tend to agree with him. His reasoning is so good that we agree, but we forget what his dharma was when he entered Kurukshetra, which was the dharma of a Kshatriya, not of Arjuna himself. So Arjuna is trying to solve his own problem in chapter 1, but in the beginning 10 verses of chapter 2, he recognizes there's something amiss, especially when Sri Krishna in verse 3, 4 or 2 or 3 says some harsh words to him. Sri Krishna is his friend. They both love each other very much, but Sri Krishna knows that he has to jumpstart Arjuna out of this state of despondency so that he can function at this crucial point on the battleground. And so he takes him to task. He uses words which are quite harsh. Anarya, unworthy, not Aryan, not noble. You're Anarya, Arjuna. You're a Kirtikar. You are somebody who is disgraceful. You can bring infamy to your family and your group fighting on your behalf. You are Klebium. That's even worse. You are impotent. You are unmanly. All these weaknesses that you are showing at this crucial point are not becoming you, Arjuna. And that's what Sri Krishna tells him and then keeps quiet. And he is actually hinting at self-pity that Arjuna is showing. That self-pity is called Karpanya dosha. That will come in a verse also. Karpanya dosha meaning, I feel very sorry for myself. Bhagavan, why me? That is the concept. We all say that at times when we face difficulties. So that Karpanya dosha is not something to be proud of. Self-pity is not a virtue. It's actually an impediment for the mind, as opposed to pity for sad condition of others, or shall we say, grief for suffering of others. That is a virtue, but self-pity never is. So here, Arjuna unfortunately continues to argue, saying, why should I fight this war against my own relatives? Even if I win, I'll never be happy after shedding this blood. It's better to resort to arms as a beggar than to try and win this kingdom, even the kingdom of 3 worlds. So he stops at that point, and then, of course, he recognizes something is amiss, especially since Sri Krishna is quiet throughout. No more words from him, no expression, I presume, on his face. So Arjuna realizes something is amiss. And then he discovers his helplessness. He doesn't know a way out of this situation. He can't think anymore. He's confused. He's in midst of a conflict and he can't decide. So at that point, he surrenders to Sri Krishna. Shrandangati comes. So he follows the 3 steps. First, he attempts on his own to try to do something about this state of mind, then realizes his helplessness and realizes that he needs guidance. And the one who can give him guidance is his friend and Sri Krishna. So ultimately at this point, in key phrase or verse 7, there are certain words used. Karpanya doshaha. Arjuna says, I've realized my helplessness in deciding what is good for me, what is right for me. I am dharma sammuda chetaha. I can't decide what is dharma and what is adharma. So I'm lost. And then he clutches to Bhagavan saying, Shishyasteham sadhimam tvam prapanna. I am now prostrating to you, Lord Bhagavan, or Sri Krishna. I surrender to you. I am your disciple. Please instruct me as a guru and tell me what's best for me. My mind is totally confused. So this surrender, of course, is essential. And that's why sometimes people ask, why did Sri Krishna in Gita teach Arjuna, a warrior, rather than Dharmaputra Yudhishthira? Because Arjuna asked for it. And that's why Arjuna is taught. And of course, as we talked earlier, when surrendering, Arjuna is saying, I'm giving up my ideas, which are obviously not correct, and my prejudices, and you help me in finding the right solution. And I am putting down my self-will and my ego at your feet. And Sashtang Namaskar, I presume, was done. In Gita chapter 4, there is a beautiful verse all our Swamijis used to repeatedly mention, that surrender is a total prostration to the Guru with all your mind. And the verse I'm referring to is Tadviddhi pranipatena pranipa prashnena sevaya. Serve a Guru first, surrender to him, and then ask him questions. Upadekshanti te jnanam, he will give you, impart the knowledge to you. And who is he? He is Jnani na Tattva Darshinaha. He has the two qualifications of being a Jnani, and meaning a scholar, and one who has Brahma Jnana, who has seen the Tattva, the essence. So at the end of verse 10, obviously, Arjuna converted to a disciple from one who came as a master to the war. And his Parth Sarathi, his charioteer, Sri Krishna, Parth Sarathi, became the Jagat Guru, became the Guru and the teacher. And so this whole conversion occurs when Sri Krishna begins his Gita Upadesha, starting from verse 11. And here, this is the second topic of Jnana Yoga, also called Sankhya Yoga. And this is the main theme of chapter 2. In fact, it is the foundation stone on which it is built, the entire edifice of Gita teaching in the remaining chapters. And what Sri Krishna discusses is the essential nature in each of us. Right now, we all believe we are this body, mind, intellect. And so it generates this doership, this enjoyership, and the ego. And here, Bhagwan will say that yes, at Vyavaharik level, you have to have that identity to function in the world and to reduce your vasana so you can come to me. But ultimately, your goal is to recognize your true self, Atma, which is not the doer, which is not the experiencer or the bhukta, karta bhukta. And so the question he is answering or helping us answer is, who am I in reality? And most of us don't know it or don't think about it. We may know it intellectually, but we never use that knowledge in our daily transactions. And he wants to tell us that this body, mind, intellect are simply media of transaction or instruments which come as a gift from Bhagwan to each of us. And who am I? He starts with that in this section. And he says, you are Chaitanya Swarup. Many, many, many words are used for that. And I'll enumerate them just for your subsequent understanding. When you go through verses, Chit, Jnanam, Vijnanam, Prajnanam, Atma, Dehi, the one embodied in the Deha, Shariri, the one embodied in Sharira. And what is the definition of this consciousness, one may ask? We all call it life principle, but we stop there. We haven't given us too much thought. So there are 4 facets of consciousness. One, it is not a part, product, or property of the body. It's not that I have a body with Atma. It is Atma that has a body, mind, intellect. Second, it is not bound or limited by the boundary of the body or contour of the body. Atma is just not in me. Atma is everywhere. Third, it's not dependent on anything. It's an independent entity. Everything else, including the world, Jivatma, everything else depends on it, but it is independent. It pervades everywhere enlivens all that is living, but it's also inherent in non-living in a different way. But he is everywhere. Like we say, Bhagwan is everywhere. And it survives even after the body dies. Because as long as the body is there, we experience it, we know it by its effect on the body, by its enlivenment. We never see Atma. We cannot see Atma, but we know it when it's reflected in the medium. Otherwise, we don't know it. We don't see it with our five senses. That's the concept. So again, repeating the features of Atma, that's what Sri Krishna takes up in various verses. Nitya, eternal, there from time immemorial, even today. BMI is not, but Atma is. BMI comes and goes. Satya, it's the Satya meaning real. It's the only reality. Everything else depends on it. So that's why we, in the beginning of Vedanta, always try to develop that vivek between Satya and Asatya. So it is Satya. Sarvagataha, all pervading, like we said earlier, in the body, outside the body, it's everywhere. Like electricity, easier thing to compare to. Electricity is there in the wires and connections. We don't see it, but when we turn on the light bulb, we see its effect as light. We turn on the fan, we see its effect as kinetic energy. So all of that is how Atma is. Aprameya, it is not experienced directly by us. We experience its effects. Agocharaha, similar, meaning our five senses cannot catch it or grasp it or understand it, not know. It is akarta bhokta. It is the ego that is the karta and bhokta. Atma, and by the way, ego is reflected consciousness, but pure consciousness is sakshi, Chaitanya. It's just a witness watching everything happening around it, never participating, and that's why it has no karma to do. It has no karma phala to gain. And nirvikara, no vikaras. And there are shad vikaras or 6 vikaras that are mentioned in Vedas. Asti, jayate, vardate, aparikshyate, vipariyamate, vinashanti. Meaning it is there, unmanifest, like we are. Then we are born, then we start to grow, then we mature, then we start decaying, and finally disease and death. So everything in nature is made up of Panch Mahabhutas or Anatma. Again, still from Bhagwan, but Anatma version, they all decay. They go through these 6 phases. Atma does not. It's eternal. And Sri Krishna stresses this in a beautiful verse 20, where he even changes the meter from Anushtup Chanda to Trishtup so that we take notice and wake up. And Najayate Briyate Va Kadachit Nayam Bhutva Bhavita Vanabhuyaha Ajo Nityam Shashvatoyam Puranaha Nahanyate Hanyamane Sharire. So this Atma is not killed. Atma does not kill. Trying to tell Arjuna's, address Arjuna's worry that he'll be killing his guru and grandfather. So Sri Krishna in this portion wants Arjuna to recognize his Atma and learn to claim it as himself and understand that BMI is a temporary gift from Bhagwan. And so that he would have no pride, no arrogance, he would not be tormented by disease and old age like all of us are, and crossover samsara. So it's a permanent remedy for all problems, Atma Jnana means. And actually there's a beautiful Pratas Marami Shiva Stotram, where the last line is Sansara Roga Hara Aushadam, the medicine to cured the samsara roga, bhava roga. Advitiyam, the only medicine that can cure samsara. That's Atma Jnana. So Bhagavan introduces self-knowledge through verse 211, where he says, you are grieving, Arjuna, for those who are not to be grieved, as per the wise ones, for all are ultimately eternal. What dies is your instrument, not you. Then that brings us to the third topic, verse 39 to 53, which is Karma Yoga. And remind yourself, Karma Yoga is not just social service. Karma Yoga is the gamut of entire spiritual practices, including what we do, starting from puja to tirth yatra, to social service, to dhyanam, to japa, everything, yajna, everything is included in Karma Yoga. Because it's a preparatory stage for us to gain that purity of mind. And Jnana Yoga is very subtle. It's not going to hit home till we purify the mind. And that's why one can study Shastras for over 25 years and nothing happens to us. It stays there as information. It does not transform us. Just like a glass of water in which we pour oil and the two layers remain separate. They never mix. That's what happens to most of us. When we study intellectually, we gain the information. We may be scholars, but we don't transform. We never get rid of our dukkham, shoka, moha, raga. That's why it's very important to practice Karma Yoga to be able to assimilate that jnana. So, and what is Karma Yoga? If we classify all of the practices, the essence of it is proper action, proper motive, proper right action. In fact, Gurudev, I think, has written a book on right action and right motive, attitude. These are the two things that we have to change when we act. We don't have to do anything fancy. We have to do what we are doing, but we have to change the way that action and motive is to proper action, proper motive. One may ask then, okay, what are you talking about? What actions? I do actions, but how do you classify them? There are three ways to classify action. Bhagavan says they are based on your gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, but he calls them uttam, the highest kind of action, that is sattvic action. Madhyama, the medium kind, which most of us, are somewhere as completely with a prominent rajoguna. We are in that madhyam category where we do good and we often say, well, I'm a good person. I live morally and ethically upright. Isn't that enough? But one will tell us otherwise. So madhyama is rajasic and adama is the lower, tamasic. Now, what are the characteristics of this action? Sattvic action is any action that includes more than myself, more people. It may be just me, it may be my family, my whole entire family, like a joint family, or my community, or then you go on and advance it to society, advance it to nation, the world itself. So many categories. So I need to practice uttam action by preference and include more beneficiaries in whatever I do. Second, rajasic, which most of us do, is basically selfish action. I may have a small group of friends and family members that I look after, but that's where everything ends, me and mine. So it is selfish, but it's not bad. And that's why we call ourselves good. But people who are adhamik, doing adhamik actions or tamasic action, they actually harm others by their action. That's where a robber comes in, and people who cheat you, cheat society, that category comes in there. So there, only that 1% benefits. All the scams we hear about in news, others all are cheated and they lose. They are the losers. So these are the three categories. And what we have to attempt to do is change our proportion, identify it in us as to what we are generally doing, and try to go towards sattvic action. And that will expand our mind, that will give us relative peace and shanti. So, and that will give us even enjoyment. In fact, depending on the proper attitude, this enjoyment component comes without interaction with indulgences. Like if I do something, we are told the attitude should be doing something wholeheartedly, with love, sincerely. It's your job to do it, you will do it. Third, cheerfully. Even if I don't like what I'm doing, I'm going to learn to love what I'm doing. And that way, then my mind will be at peace. So these three components are the right attitude. Wholeheartedly and with love to help, sincerely and cheerfully, so that I learn to do what I have to do. And how do you enjoy? You offer it to Bhagwan. Ishwar Arpan Buddhi, right? Facet of Karma Yoga. So you learn to put it, Bhagwan, this creation is yours, and everyone in this world, in creation, is you, and I'm offering it to you at your feet. Then there's no worry. You know, he is Sarva Shaktiman, Sarvagnya, he knows, and he will take care of you as he takes care of the entire creation. Then you just feel okay, and then you are able to take the consequences, thanklessness, which sometimes we look for thanks as a result of a good job we do, criticism out of jealousy, all of those things, then you can stand. You're not worried because you have prasad buddhi. You're going to accept everything Bhagwan is giving you. He's the karma phaladata. He's the one who will decide very justly what you deserve at that particular point after your action. Of course, more details on Karma Yoga comes in chapter 3. So this is what our Bhagwan talks about in verse 39 to 53. Now, what are the benefits of Karma Yoga? Of course, we said Chitta Shuddhi, Sadhan Chatushtai Sampatti, as Vedant puts it, and Jnana Yogyata, as we said earlier. But remember, Chitta Shuddhi is not a direct means to moksha. It will give you some peace of mind, but it is not freedom. You have to wait for a bad event to occur and you'll be shaken again. So that is not the moksha. So we must realize it's a step towards moksha. Jnanam has to come. And of course, the benefit of Karma Yoga is going to weaken your raga dvesha, strong likes, dislikes, and it will weaken your ego, ahankar, I-ness, my-ness, etc. Eknath Ishwaranji in his 8-point program simplifies this by saying a few things. He says, start with putting others first, even in your family. Do what your child wants to do if it's a reasonable request. Put others first, even if you had intention of reading or doing something else. To give back to society. Remember, you're getting a lot from society, from nature, from food, water, air, everything is free for you. And the grocers help you pick up milk and groceries from the store, etc., etc. So realize that you are indebted to many in the world or in society. So give back in form of the Panch Mahabhutas, yagnas. Then contribute to creation. Again, same thing. You must do your part. You can't just be doing it in a cocoon like for me and mine, which is what most of us start off with. So we have to get out of that, break that cocoon and be a free bird ultimately, or butterfly. Now, in the last topic, which is verses 54 through 72, very, very interesting topic. It answers two questions. It is about sthita prajna. The other word is sthira prajna. Sthira, steady, prajna. two words, sthita, sthira, steady, prajna, wisdom. So prajna means intellectual self-knowledge, what we gain by satsang and study of scriptures, etc. Sthira, sthita applies to assimilation. Has it entered you? Is it coming to your help whenever you are interacting in the world? Or is it somewhere in the back of your mind where you just continue acting the way you're acting now? That is the difference. So sthira prajna. And this is a person who has gone through karma yoga, who has gone through jnana yoga, through a guru, and has realized self. And what has he done in essence as a vyakti, as a person in this worldly, in the world? He has converted this knowledge into emotional strength of the kind that allows him to be self-independent. He is no longer attached to this person, this object, this place, this situation for his joy and fulfillment in life. So he is independent. His only dependence is one, which is Bhagwan himself. But he has switched from worldly dependence to God dependence. And he knows that Bhagwan is the data for the entire creation. Why would he not take care of me along with the rest of the world? So, and Bhagwan promises that in chapter 18, verse 66, the last teaching sloka, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam praja aham tva sarva papebhyah moksha ishrami ma shuchah. Don't sorrow, I will free you. Just leave everything and come to me. Now, leave everything doesn't happen by itself. That's where we have to put our effort to leave everything and assimilate the knowledge. So the two topics here in this section that are covered are, one, how to become sthita prajna person, meaning what are the sadhanani or means to become one. And second question is, we are always curious, what transformation will result in my life? What will be the result of that status if I were to gain it? That's lakshanani. What will be my characteristics? Like Arjuna asked Shri Krishna, what are the characteristics of sthita prajna person? He wants to know, to see if he can reach that goal. Otherwise, as we said, knowledge remains as information and transformation does not happen. Like oil and water example. And there's no end to sansar of our misery. So let's first talk about the sadhanani. How do we study shastras so that or Gita for that matter, so that we gain emotional strength, which is what will happen. So what sadhanani do we need? There are three that will be mentioned by and by. One is indriya nigraha, sense control. Dhamma, very important. And why? Because after all, the mind is like a tape recorder. Anything you allow to enter, it will start spinning, churning in the mind. And that's why be very careful of what you allow to enter your mind through the five senses. Very, very important. It's not suppression. It is channelization. Realizing what your vasanas are or swabhav is, and recognizing that you may want to avoid certain things so that you don't start thinking about those things in loops like we do. So if we don't have any control, we will continue to have a disturbed mind, constantly churning something or the other. And we can't focus or learn. Remember, a calm mind is essential. Focus is essential. Ekagrata, to know anything very subtle. So that is what we have to recognize. Second, this is also called Dhamma in Sampatti. Shat Sampatti, Dhamma is one of them. It's even Patanjali's Yoga Shastra, it is mentioned. Then Shama. Shama is mind control. That's a second category. Again, here, the mind doesn't just think about what comes in through the senses. The mind also creates his own thoughts from the past experiences, right? So that also has to be controlled. What thoughts am I bringing back from the past? My distaste for somebody, or what is it that then agitates my mind? So mano nigraha, mastery over the mind, or thought discipline. Just make sure you don't create havoc in your mind with input from old past experiences created by the mind, and our raga dvesha comes into play. They are going to come though. Those thoughts are going to come. That's the nature of the mind. Arrival is okay, but don't pay attention to those thoughts. Then they will pass away. If you do not give them you do not patronize them, then they will go away. That is what we have to learn in meditation. Let the thoughts come. It's all right. They will come, dirty or good, whatever. But I'm not going to patronize them. Then when they realize you're not paying attention to them, they will disperse. That is what we have to do in developing mastery over the mind. And once you patronize them, of course, they're perpetuated again in a loop cycle. So I am the one who can decide what thoughts I patronize and what thoughts I don't. I nip in the bud. Very, very important. If you look at what you spend your time in daydreaming or thinking the whole day, you will realize so much of your time is wasted in that. There is no sense stimuli, but your mind is creating its own past thoughts and, what is that, ruminating, like cattle do. They take in food, bring it back and keep on thinking about it. Third that we need is nididhyasanam, which is Vedantic meditation. Usually it follows in sequence or kramat. You start Shravanam from Guru, Shastra studies. You do Mananam, reflect on those teachings to remove doubts. And the third step is Nididhyasanam, where you are removing the obstinate thoughts of yours, which are constantly bothering you. You can't get over them. And what are those? Those are basically two. The world is real and I am the Karta Bhokta. These are the two thoughts that are always there even after all this. So they are called Viparita Bhavana, and they have to go for us to assimilate the knowledge. They are very deep-rooted, they are beginningless, so it's difficult, but they are done by Nididhyasana. Doesn't mean you close your eyes and sit very, very still like we do in Dhyanam. Dhyanam is to help you get ekagrata and help you sit in meditation, develop some kind of tolerance for all that posture and all that. So this is done even with open eyes. If I'm washing dishes and I'm reflecting on what we talked about today, that is Nididhyasanam. I'm re-talking to myself about what I learned from the Guru. Nididhyasanam is without a Guru. And I keep on reflecting and removing my doubt slowly. What you think about is what mind ultimately accepts. That's the maxim. So you keep on reflecting, and you can even sit on the side of a river bank and stare at the horizon and do Nididhyasanam. That is what needs to be done. The details of it are in chapter 6. Bhagavad will tell us. So these are the ways and means to reach freedom or the goal. And the master who has realized this goal, what are his lakshanas? What are his characteristics? That's the next topic. There are two main traits. One is he is purnatvam. He is fulfilled. He is not searching anymore for long-lasting happiness, peace of mind, like we all are. He's got it. And so he no more has any binding desires. He doesn't feel like I must do this, I must do that, I must get that, I must meet such a person, etc., etc. He's fulfilled. And his sukham is there continuously. And he's self-sufficient. He needs nothing. By nothing, I don't mean food and air and water, but he needs nothing beyond basic needs for survival. and he has no raga. He happily moves around. Somebody offers him a Starbucks coffee, he'll happily drink it and enjoy it. But if he doesn't get it next day, it's okay. So it's not that he's not enjoying life. If the thing presents to him, he will enjoy it. But he's not craving for it. He's not dependent on it, habituated to it. And he moves about without any problem. So that's one, Purnatvam. Second is Samatvam. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, Sri Krishna will say in chapter 2. Samatvam, evenness of mind, where the mind does not undulate in downs of life and ups of life. It stays steady. Such a mind is a mind that has no fear, that has no strong likes and dislikes. And he is actually compared in Shastras to an ocean. An ocean is ever full. It's not quiet, but it's ever full. It doesn't matter how many rivers bring gallons of water to it. It doesn't matter how much rainwater comes down. It accepts it all. That is how this Jivan Mukta is, or shall we say, Sthita Prajna is. And he has no conflict. He is full. And he is a free bird. He is also called Jivan Mukta. He ultimately, at death, gets Videha Mukti, meaning he takes no more bodies. He is liberated, no more births. And so Atma Jnanam, by looking at all this, one can see is the basic theme of Gita, entire Gita. And it is taught by Bhagwan in the beginning to Arjuna and us. And really, to be honest, even a little understanding of this, not reaching the final goal, brings peace in mind and brings a different change in attitude. Like a friend of mine who was part of our study group in Texarkana used to say, she said, after 5 years of study group, she said, you know, I do see one change in me. I'm an office manager in my husband's medical practice. And in the past, when I lost an employee, I was so ruffled. I couldn't sleep for 1 or 2 nights. I cried. I did this, that. And it was a big load on my head to find a new employee because I had to train the person. Meanwhile, I had to continue doing the work, etc., etc. She said, now I just shrug my shoulder. It's okay. This happens too, and it will pass too. I'll just go through it. And that is the attitude which helps us a lot in life. It's a relief. So chapter 2 ends with a Sankalpa Vakya, and I'll just say it. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre, and we understood these 2 terms, Brahma Vidya Atma Jnanam, Yoga Shastre Karma Yoga. Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade, the dialogue between Shri Krishna and Arjuna. Sankhya Yoga Nama, Jnana Yoga. This chapter basically is circling around Jnana Yoga. Dvitiyo Dhyayaha, that's the 2nd chapter. Now, in conclusion, one may ask, is Gita study relevant today? Number 1. Number 2, I always want to know someone who has attained this. Then I can believe in it. So believing in it, there's so many in this and past century, right? Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, Vivekananda ji, Sri Raman Maharshi ji, our own Gurudev, Gandhi ji, I'm presuming, all of them are just a few we can name. There are many we don't know. And is the study relevant? Well, if we were to get that emotional strength through Atma Jnanam, this study will be very, very relevant because nothing will ruffle us in life. And in fact, let's see what Gandhiji said about it. He said, Gita is an infallible guide of conduct for a ready solution for all our problems and trials. Gita's teachings relate to our immediate problems of contemporary society problems such as rampant violence, discord between nations, group alienation, and environmental pollution. These are our problems today. News are full of it. And that's why one has to say that the battlefield that is shown in our Gita is really symbolizing the internal warfare in each of us between the good and the evil, the narrow self-seeking versus the divine selfless realization. And Arjuna speaks for all of us, and Gita is being taught by Bhagavad to all of us. And he is the Lord of the universe. In fact, he is silently hidden in our own self as Atma, and we have to discover that. And that alone has the power to change our character and change our conduct. And when we put what we learn into our practice, then we develop the emotional strength, which will allow us to contribute to our family, our society, and they will also transform through our transformation. And it will be Ram Rajya. So that is joyous living. And of course, we have to follow the rules of right conduct, which is dharma, and find time to slow down for japa, dhyanam, puja, samadhama, ekagrata, whatever, and put others first. And regular scriptural study, satsang, will help us because our ego is huge and ferocious, very hard to get rid of it. So I'll end on that note. We'll say our Shanti mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Hari Om, everyone.